Hi, it's Nick Coe. I'm here in the Bay Area with Guy Sengstock from the Circling Institute. And today we're going to be jumping into kind of like my personal journey, my transformation. And Guy has been my executive coach, my personal coach, my life coach, my friend, my advisor, and probably like the biggest inspiration of my life this year, which has been one of the most challenging and magical year of my life, from personal transformations of my relationship, my business, and pretty much every important life-changing decision that's ever happened. I would say that Guy has kind of uncovered in my head. We've been spending about 3 to 4 days a week, every week, just talking about what issues I've been going through and the lessons that I've learned from working with you, and also going to your weekend events through the Circling Institute, have, after spending the last 7 months of my life going on workshops every single week, the most transformational experience of my entire life. It's been pretty amazing.
Right. It's been amazing to watch.
Yeah.
I feel like that all of our time together, I've been watching a dramatic shift, right, from who you were, in a way that, like, watching you not even understand yourself as you were, and then seeing that unfold and watching you say stuff now that I would imagine if we put if we would have watched you now, if you would have watched you now and you would have watched that recording, you would have thought you had gone crazy, right? Because it was so different. But I've appreciated how, and in a meta way, that there's nothing like really facing the pain of your life, right? That if you really face it and you open your heart to it, you will go through a metamorphosis. And I've seen you do that, and it's been an honor to be witness to that, to support that, to hold that, to be a part of it, to be your friend, to be your coach, yeah, and to watch you learn all these skills, right? Now, here's the thing: is that you had a lot of skills, and we'll go into some of that stuff, right, from before. So, I think the difference is that you've learned some skills, but where you're coming from with those skills is a place that you didn't even know that there was such a place in yourself, right? And so now there's this whole world in yourself that these skills that you had before, and all the skills that you've been learning in your relationships with people, and I can see it with just your relationships with reality. It just seems like reality showing up for you. You're in a different reality. I'm watching you go and spend 3 days with people who have conversations with God, and you're reading crazy books, and but the thing that I can feel happening in you is that a part of you that you just haven't known before is like coming out and shining.
Yeah, I've been meeting up with the authors of Conversations with God and people that are doing spiritual journeys around India, going to Deepak Chopra Center, doing crazy experiences in the jungle in Costa Rica, and also going out here and hanging out with what I call the spirituality and self-improvement mecca. And one of the things that I felt really resonating with the Circling Institute and the communication tools that I've seen, and how it's kind of built upon what I've done in Real Social Dynamics, is in what we did with RSD. A lot of it was focused on exercises that would take you out into the real world and just practice right there what was going on. A lot of it was started off from guys going out to bars and clubs and then meeting women. And then what I found from circling is that there's a part of it where what we were doing, a lot of it was just focused on improvisation. And then what you feel, you try to just project that, whatever that is. Whereas in circling, you're really focused on the other person and their reality, and you're focused on kind of going deep into their experience, kind of paraphrasing their world and going deeper into uncovering some kind of need that is underneath it all. Start speaking to that need to give birth some kind of new experience to communicate, connect to that other person. I've seen that through my interactions with the men and women from the workshops at Circling, through my personal interactions in my life, where it's been with my wife, my business associates, with my friends and family. And the way it's just transforming has been really, really, really magical. For me, especially, I know there's been times where, although in a business situation, it's like I can instantly get into my head. I can instantly communicate and talk from a very logical, rational standpoint and accomplish something. And I think as a result, I've had friends kind of say things to me where I felt hurt, saying things like, you know, and saying this to like my family and my friends, saying things like, you know, your interactions sometimes appear very transactional. I think it's because of how your parents raised you. They're really great parents that focused me on how to succeed. They'd help me with my schoolwork for finals week. They'd help give me any resources and advice because my dad was successful in business about how to build my company and how to grow. But it wasn't about things like feelings. Just I remember there was a moment in about 3 months before we met, and I sent a message to my wife, said, "Hey, how are you feeling?" And I felt like that question alone was such a unique thing, as opposed to how are you doing, whatever. But just talking about feelings, because feelings wasn't really a focus in my family life. Whereas in circling, I notice a lot of what happens is you hear the other person, and then hearing what they have said, you'll say, "Oh, I feel this, and this inspires this, and I imagine this is what's happening." And this leads to me resonating with this and this and this and this. And then the conversation kind of flows. But what you're doing is you're focusing on listening to certain things that they say, and then it goes deeper. And I feel like kind of what circling does, it kind of makes even just a layman kind of like an executive coach.
Yeah.
But you're projecting their reality forward. I don't know if that's how you would explain it, but I feel like when I'm circling someone, I'm projecting what their reality is through myself. So they're talking to me as if I'm their higher self. And when I'm getting circled, I feel like I'm talking to like not just my higher self, but I'm in a workshop, like the circling intensive weekends, like Sovereign and Immersion and Explore. I'm going deep into this reality of like, there's like this sovereign me that people could relate to. I could go deep into this, and I could also just explore the other person's reality. And you've really developed this like kind of like this system. And I think it's really interesting because when I first did a coaching session with you, because I remember walking into the room at the first circling event, which is basically free. It's $20, basically like a circling night intensive. It's basically free. It's nothing. It's going in there. It's like, oh, it's a $20 workshop. But I remember in the first 5 minutes of that workshop, you had us do an interactive exercise where we sat down, we looked in each other's eyes, and I paired up with a 20-something-year-old guy who I never met before. And in 5 minutes, I had an intimate conversation that felt like the most intimate communication I could possibly experience on this planet. And I didn't know what was happening. I just knew that this person was opening up to me, and I was opening up to this person in 5 minutes in a way that I could communicate my reality to the world in a way that I never thought was even possible in the most intimate relationships, even with you're in bed with a lover, or you were talking about the most impactful emotions of your life. And the way that you kind of like brought it out with some of the interactive exercises from your program, I found so compelling. I just felt so grateful just imagining that experience now. And then I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I feel like really good about myself. What I'm now calling nourished, which is a phrase I'm hearing all the time from students. They feel nourished. And I feel like the other person felt nourished, and I also feel like connected. I feel grateful that I'm just here. And all these emotions that I never really pinpointed. I don't know why I'm feeling like this, but if every interaction where I met somebody for the first 5 minutes can be like this, I didn't know what that was, but I had to reach out to you, get some more private executive coaching. I think we did that like 3 to 4 days a week for 4 or 5 months now. It's been truly the most powerful revelations of my life.
Right. Totally.
And it's interesting because you're really just projecting me, talking to the best of me back at me. Yet now I'm doing that in casual conversation with my friends and pretty much everyone I'm interacting with, everyone I care about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is everybody.
In fact, you were saying before or earlier today, you were talking about like even my old business partner wants me to move in and hang out and just be around me. And that was there was a moment where it's kind of like, it looked like you recognized something about how the world was responding to you. Could you say more about that? Yeah.
So what was happening was that we were talking about how I reached out to my friend Chad, and he wants me to do business with him, and he's somebody who I've known for about a month. And just through my communications with him through the practice of circling, and I told him I'm a rookie at this because sometimes I'm not all the way. I have to complete the Art of Circling or Facilitator program in order to really master those skills. But from the weekend intensives and our coaching together alone, I was able to create a connection with this really successful guy who has this huge mansion within 1 month of just hanging out with him. And from the very first day of just hanging out with him, he's wanted to connect more. But after doing this for a month, this person invited me to move into his mansion, help him with his business, help him grow it, invited my assistant to move in, invited my cats to move in. He doesn't even like cats, and he doesn't necessarily even want people there. He wanted to use this house solely for business purposes. And I was able to help inspire him to get more engaged in his business on an operational level using the communication tools from you. I was able to inspire him to connect with his relationship with his girlfriend in a way he's never thought possible. And also, I've inspired him to reach out to people in his family and connect with his values in a way he never thought was possible. And he said he said in 2019, it was a year of transformation. That was his New Year's resolution last year. It's 2020 now. But in 2019, he said that year was a transformation for him solely because that last month in December with me. And the way I was communicating with him was bringing out ideas and values on a very core level about who he is and who he wants to be. And also from me going on my journey, I was able to introduce him to people who also inspired me, like Neil Dahl Walsh, who I also interviewed. Yeah. And also the lessons I learned from you, and then putting his best self in front of him as if I was him. But the funny thing is, sometimes he asked me, hey, Nick, I'm not sure sometimes if I'm actually here with you or if I'm here with myself, you know? and I'm really trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, tell me what you really think. And when you get to that point,
yeah,
it's like some people are afraid of giving advice.
right.
And when you get to that point where you have that deep trust and connection to the point where you trust yourself and you care about yourself, the advice you're getting is from your best of yourself being projected back at you. They want to actually hear my opinion. Someone who he's known for less than a month about the most important relationship, business, and value-driven decisions of his life. And he wants to just hear from me. It's because that trust was created on that quick of a level. And I love how the Circling Institute has, under your guidance and with the work of your team, developed this system. It's truly amazing.
It's great. A couple of different things. I've had the experience of just kind of watching you go into your experience and make sense of your experience. And what's really interesting is a big difference I noticed with you from when I first met you until now, and progressively so, is that I would ask you a question, and it was usually like there was no this. Like there was usually like a strategic answer or something that you would say that would be kind of more strategic. But this whole other dimension of where you just went, I could feel you like kind of just tapping into your experience. You have access to yourself, it looks like, in such a way that you can, as you're talking about it, you're realizing and making connections that are alive in you, that are from the bottom up, if you will. And it's just cool. I remember that just wasn't even in your world.
Yeah, when I first met you, I was so focused on my own experience. The idea that I would actually scan myself for even a fraction of a second and just realize, I'm feeling grateful. I'm feeling really curious about what's going on here. I'm feeling very open and wanting to connect and share. Just the idea of actually expressing what those are seems important. So much of my life has been focused on conveying facts, or my version of the facts, as opposed to me really focused on how those things affect me on an emotional level. Now, when you're, especially in an intimate relationship, or you're involved with some kind of romance or romantic partner, or you're interested in dating a girl, so much of that involves those powerful key emotions. It's so often we ignore all that, and that makes it so difficult to connect. And I remember hearing that continually. You know, I built a company about connection. You know, I was hearing from people, I'm trying to connect with you, but there's something about what you're saying that makes it I can't connect.
Yeah.
And I'm not exactly sure what that was. And I was like, I wonder what that is also. And it took me months to realize that missing piece was actually to scan where I am and actually acknowledge all these different emotions that I could be feeling, whether it's sadness and grief because my wife left me, or anger and frustration because I'm dealing with business challenges against somebody who violated a term of my company, or whether it was an issue of me feeling happiness and joy because now I'm communicating deeper with people in my company and with my wife and kind of reconciling the connection. It's been all these different things, and then me recognizing what does that look like? What does that cause me to feel? And how am I conveying it? And why is that important to the other person? So often in my life, I'll say things because I've seen things that will benefit the other person. Like if there was a business opportunity, I saw so much opportunity in your business to really grow and scale and become a massive influence to the world. I consider what you're teaching could define my divine practice and divine practice of other people and how they relate to the world. And I was just thinking, wow, what I'd love to do is really help support you. And I'm thinking, how can I offer value? That's the biggest thing that we've been focusing on, Real Social Dynamics. How can I offer value? I could offer value through my business sense, knowledge, see pieces and make you a lot more money. Yet in the real world, so many people aren't focused on that on a transactional level. They're focused on how it makes other people feel. What can people learn about themselves? I've discovered that when you're in a relationship, the only reason why you're in a relationship with another person is to learn more about yourself and to help that person see the world through their eyes being seen and your eyes being seen. And it's like you are them, they're you. It's like the value I get from interacting with another human, just another person of any kind, whether it's in business, in personal life, in the family, the value that I get is offering my experience of how the world can be seen through my eyes, whether that's the excitement and energy, happiness, the sadness, the grief, the lessons that I've learned, the feelings I could express. It's so many people are asking themselves, what value can this other person get from me? You know, how do I connect with this person? They're a billionaire. This person's a celebrity. This person is a beautiful woman that has so many options. Why I should be interested in dating me? And so much of that is apparent in all of us through the power of tapping into that energetic connection you can have, what you feel, relate to them from your experience, and then notice all the little details of what that is that may be there that they may or may not have recognized. To allow that other person to see the world through your eyes in a way that they could see the world, that gives them that gift. And that gift is the most beautiful thing, it's the most intimate thing, and it's the thing that I now care about more than anything else in the world, that experience of the world. And it kind of allows us to really tap into our own purpose. It gives us kind of like a purpose in life. And one of the most beautiful things that I love is how you state the beginning of every single workshop, whether it's a short 3-hour taster, or whether it's a long weekend event, or whether it's something like our coaching sessions. You've always stated that there's 3 intentions that you focus on in the beginning to create like a safe space, a safe container, safe and secure environment where people feel like what you're going to say really resonates with them, where they don't feel like there's any risk of something that could not feel good, not give them what they need, not be like the most ideal experience. You say that you're really communicating with the intention of relating to the other person, you know, really looking for that opportunity to really connect with them, connecting to them as a person, relating to them, and not projecting onto them something or another experience.
Right, not a transaction.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like I trade you this, you trade me that. This is the experience we have. And you have an experience where you're really listening for their humanity as a person, as opposed to I'm listening to see I'm going to get something, or I'm listening because I want to make sure they understand a certain thing. You're listening to their humanity. You're listening to understand who they are, what they're communicating to you. And you're also creating an environment where they know that what you're saying is safe to share. They could trust you. It's like what you're sharing with them is something between you and them. It's not something that you're just going to use for some other purpose. It's not. It's something that has a sanctity to it. Something like almost like a confidentiality of some sort. It's something that is really sacred. And when you create that space, it then allows everyone to open up, and then you build upon that. I've seen so many building upons of exercise where you might bring up an exercise like, what does love mean? And a person will repeat it back and forth, and they'll say, what does love mean? You're looking in each other's eyes, you're doing that, and you might swap. And then you'll say, well, now hearing about what the other person says, but what love means, how does that make you feel? What do you get about this person? And then you convey that. And the person will be totally surprised about what that is. Now, you don't just do that about love, you've done it about intimacy and all sorts of other magical experiences. And for me, that's really resonated and allowed me to do that, not just about what love or intimacy is, but all sorts of other experiences in my life, whether it's just like, what does it mean for me to help you with this project? Or what does it mean when I say that there's a possibility that we're soulmates? Or when or someone else says, hey, I invite you to come over to dinner, and I hope that it's going to be an amazing experience. We're looking forward to being with you. Now, typically, like just those casual things, I would respond, for example, to the last one, I would respond, well, great, I look forward to seeing you too. And maybe I might say, maybe I could bring some wine over. Now someone will say, hey, I'm really looking forward to having you for dinner. And I'm like, well, hearing you say that, I feel really grateful. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. And I really feel this anticipation. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. And is there anything I could bring? Because I'd love to bring over something. But I would basically make it more about my experience. And it might lead us, the conversation going a little bit deeper. And I've noticed that it almost always does.
Right. What do you make of that? There's something about, right, there's something about like, what I'm hearing you say is basically like, the way I have been living my life, I have been more in a place of, I say certain things in order to get a certain result, right? And now, then you come and do the circling thing, right? And then you do some of these exercises and you get circle and we spend some time together. And now you're saying things like, oh, actually, I sit in front of somebody and I let them know what my experience is. And then that seems to lead to these interactions with people that I imagine break into what you didn't even know that you didn't know that were possible.
Yes,
It's unpredictable, isn't it? You start to not know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here. I'm just being here. It's like I feel like totally present.
Yeah.
It's like I'm listening to people like Eckhart Tolle talk about the power of now, but it hasn't been like me understanding what presence is until I've actually discussed my experience, heard the other person's experience, kind of shared it, and it allowed me to take the mundane conversations you have with complete strangers, someone you might just meet from walking down the street or the first time at a cocktail party, and having very deep conversations, way deeper than a typical going to a business convention and meeting someone and talking about business, and going deeper into what is most alive and important to them, what has their attention, what is really getting the powerful responses, and what my experiences of hearing what that is to them, to kind of like open up a reflection or a mirror of what is possible. I remember one of the things I did, not circling, but was to grab a mirror in a workshop and then talk to myself about my experience of what it is I'm experiencing with myself. And when I'm doing circling, I'm doing the same kind of thing, just with people, a group of people. Because in circling, you break up into small groups, or we'll do one-on-one. But from that, and also just working with you, and to kind of like get into an experience with people who understand circling, is kind of like getting to experience with people that you could trust are not trying to push their own agenda down on you. Yet it's refreshing to know that person's just there, just to be present with you and allow you to have your own experience.
Yeah.
And then to kind of let the conversation flow and allow you to share that experience, yet in a way where you know that other person's really relating with the intention of relating to you. Now, it takes a while to master. I know that one of the things about circling that I've kind of like felt was kind of like a part of it that I've desired to be there, that hasn't been there. It's been like an online digital course. Right now you don't have one, or a program that really is out there, kind of breaks things down to like a methodical system. I know you've done it over like a full year course and program, and now you're doing it in weekends where people can do that throughout the weekends. This artist circling training program, and people who really master can facilitate it. Yeah, I'd love to see that scale.
Yeah, totally. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Right now you're doing it here in the Bay Area. It's like if you're not coming out to the Bay Area,
Yes.
what's going on? I mean, it's January 2020 right now. I'd love to see that grow, though.
Right. Totally. And that's what we've been talking about how to make this more accessible. In different forms. So I'm like super excited to explore all of that. I mean, as you know, it's usually I was told, actually, I think I heard it from Tim Ferriss that oftentimes the inventor of something new, right, in the world, it's usually the students that end up actually figuring out how to market it and all that stuff, and the teacher is just kind of in a different kind of space. And so I really appreciate you bringing in all the distinctions that you've like developed through your history, but also kind of watching you really get it, right? Really get it, because it's the thing about connection, right? Is I'm not connected to you. I don't know I'm connected to you because I know I'm connected. I'm not informed about it. I feel it, right? I feel it, and there's a in a certain way, you could say, our heart and our nervous systems are, as human beings, we're designed to be fundamentally open to each other. That's why, like, we have to close up a lot, and that's why people are like guarded their heart when they've been hurt by other people, and most people are walking around, I would say, really contracted around each other. And we have to contract because that presupposes that we're fundamentally open to one another. Because if you think about it, what's really interesting is whenever you have a conversation, like, you could say something to me, that you could see something in me and say something to me that could both enlighten me, right? Or you could say something or point something out or just say something to me that reveals something about me that could put me in a bunch of trauma, that can completely change my life for the better or the worse. And in fact, like, if we just look at people's timelines, right, and they talk about all the things that changed their life, it usually has to always do with relationship, positive and negative. So it's like we are relational all the way down, right? So circling in a very real way is just revealing what's so, right? Like, that we're designed to be in relationship with each other. Like, if even all the studies that they're doing in biology with attachment theory, they're realizing like everything is about the baby needing to be a certain distance from the mother's face, right? And if it's too far away or if it's too close, it messes up their whole biology. Like, this connection between the I, thou, right, in different ways throughout our life is how we become a person, is in the space and the attention of other people, even when we're alone, right? If you ever notice, like, when you're alone and you're tripping out in your head, what are you doing? You're probably having like all kinds of conversations with people in your life. You're always, even when you're alone, like the how I know I'm me is constituted in the relationships. Because I feel very much like, for me, I feel in a certain sense constituted by all those relationships. I'm pregnated with all the deep, influential conversations I've had with people that took me under the wings, all the times I've been circled, all the insights, all the trauma, all the betrayal, all of that is in some way I'm inseparable from that. So circling in a very real way is about, like, really dwelling in a relational space, right? And seeing and just learning how to be more and more articulate, open, having our hearts open to each other, and speak the truth of our own experience, right? And that's very different. And you had talked about that before. Usually when we talk to each other, we don't notice that it's like somehow strategic, right? Like you talked about, like, I get to just be with somebody and not have an agenda. Like that was a totally new concept for you at one point. So if you like let go of the agenda, then what are you left with? Well, you get to find out what you're left with. You get to find out what you say. You get to find out what the other person says. And there's something about that spontaneity and that openness that just seems to be inherently nourishing, right? Really inherently nourishing. And also leads to conversations and opportunities that reveal things about you and about the other person, and opportunities unfold that because you've let go of your agenda, which is like you could say is like the box that you live inside of, right? So when you like let go of that box, you can begin to experience everything else outside of that box. And there's a way in which you can start to have conversations where both of you walk out of that conversation and that connection more enriched, more full, more heartful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, more heartful in conversation, more enriched, and the conversation has no agenda, which is very similar to how in Real Social Dynamics you talk about how you want to get into a social experimentation mindset as if you're like a scientist who has a hypothesis and you were testing a hypothesis. It's just that this kind of takes it even a step even further, where you have a situation where there isn't even a hypothesis at all. You're just there. You're just being, as opposed to doing something. And the concept of just the beingness, this kind of like existential like philosophy, that's kind of like a part of circling. And what that really means has been a huge epiphany for me. Just the concept of just being, and then conveying from that state of just being, and then listening, and then actually doing all these exercises and tasks and things, and circling yourself, and then being part of this guiding force that really uncovers some of the most amazing things. I mean, from what I've seen at these weekends, and also just from us one-on-one, just interactions where people will gravitate into the most intense experiences of their lives, whether it's been like a really significant decision they have to make that will change their life entirely and open up a whole new universe for them, whether it's been like a trauma where you're in tears and then everyone kind of like feels this massive intense emotions that are just constantly changing from second to second, yet everything, although is really emotionally charged, there's so much motion and energy, these emotions just kind of guide the conversations to some kind of a resolution. And it doesn't even have to be a solution. It's a resolution of something about the person feeling considered, allows that person to be gotten and then therefore nourished, and then feel like there's something that was accomplished, even if there wasn't actually a shift.
Right.
There's some kind of like
Yeah.
a shift
Yeah.
in the chemicals in your
Right.
head.
It's like we may begin talking about a problem that you have, and we go in talking about that problem, we end up going on this whole journey, this whole walk. And at the end of that walk, that problem may or may not be solved, but you say things like, oh, my eyes are more clear, like my vision is better. It's not, it's like it's at a different level than just outcomes and results. I mean, oftentimes where, what we did is I'll do these intensives, and, we've experienced it, where we work one-on-one, like individually for, 3, 4, 5 days straight, 10 hours a day. And it's interesting how time flies, right? But all we're doing is basically circling. And oftentimes what I'll do is I'll start on day one, I'll have a whiteboard or something, and I'll just excavate everything that you want out of this interaction, the next 3 days that we're going to spend together. And I'll just, okay, what else? And I'll write that down. Okay, what else? What else? Okay, if there was one more thing, what else? And what else? And we get all of it out, and then I'll put it over in the corner, and then we'll go on a ride, right? We'll just get interested in like what I'm experiencing, what you're experiencing, and then at the end of that, I'll take that board out again, and we'll look at it, and then they'll read it. And you know what's interesting? The very things that they had listed out don't even make sense to them. It's not even like that they got what they wanted, because they're now someone different. and they want something completely different. And I've seen that over and over and over again. And it's like what, and you know, on some level, that's what's possible in a conversation, right? Through just being ourselves, just being curious, like kind of opening up and just truly giving a shit about you. Like truly giving a shit about like how you are in this moment, what's up in your life and what you care about, what beats your heart. And then being open to be impacted in knowing you. They'll be affected to be changed. And then to share that. It's this reciprocity that has has, you could say, an autopoetic feedback loop that where you start to feel in a state of flow, of where I start to just share spontaneously, and the attention and the energy that I give out, like, comes into you, right, and creates something, allows you to be more of you, and then you feed back to me more than I fed out, right? And you get in those deep flow states with each other, and then like time disappears, and then you come out and you're just, life looks really different from there. And what's interesting is I think a little bit of what you're talking about throughout this, it is kind of hard to bring down into words, is what I'm hearing you say is that there's a whole world, there's a whole option that wasn't even on the table before. It's called, actually, the good stuff may be all this is the domain of what I don't know about, right? And what's really interesting is that if you start to like actually have a relationship with the world of that you didn't know and you didn't know that you didn't know, and you experience that world through this way of relating over and over and over again, you start to relax into unknowing, and you start to feel yourself move into, like, find the sweet spot in a conversation that accesses that, like, you could say, the space of an inexhaustible intelligibility, right? And every person I found to be that's the case. It's like as you just get curious and you just be present with one another and you just start talking about what's right there, right? And you just keep staying in the present moment, even when you talk about things, right? There's a way in which you can notice that you can come back into the present moment, right? And we can feel how that affected us. And as you do that, that present moment seems to get more full and rich, and you start saying things that you didn't even know before. That kind of space of intelligibility, of luminance, of brightness, and can end up being your relationship with reality. And that's where it gets really deep.
Absolutely.
That's where it gets really deep. It's really exciting.
I love how you bring out the things that you were saying about how there is this not knowingness about what you don't even really know.
Yeah.
It's like that curiosity that you could have for somebody that people say, oh, just be curious. Get the deepness and richness of how circling and the communication of relational authentic communication that comes out of circling, how it allows you to really connect with people. It just really kind of enlivens what curiosity really is, what it really means. For me, it's really fascinating because one of the things that I had as a fear, ever since I was a little kid, was that my life would be boring. I would need to make my life more exciting. I think that one of the things about myself is that I grew up focused on studying as opposed to really having a lot of friends in school. I wasn't really taking my adult years. I was really putting myself out there. And because of that fear, I remember asking one of my friends, and he said about how I'd love to make a movie about my life. It'd be fun to have that. And he goes, Nick, if you had a movie made about your life, it would probably be the most boring movie ever created. You know, I got that, and I was like, huh, that's unusual.
Yeah.
I want to change that. I want to have a really exciting life. So what I would continually do is work on doing the most exciting actions. Not necessarily from an emotional standpoint, but it wasn't like I did this simple thing, like, oh, I went on this hike and I saw a glorious sunset. I felt the beauty of it radiating through my body, the heat sensation of it glowing through my skin, and it reminded me of when I made love for the first time, the excitement and adrenaline and arousal, excitement, this energy I wanted to pull forward in life. What I would say is, no, I hiked this mountain. It was 20,000 feet. It was in Africa. And then I went to this other mountain. And then I went to a mountain in 30 other countries. But then I traveled to 70 other countries and built businesses there. And then those businesses I went and I did it in like 6 months. And in the last 6 months, I spent over, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in workshops. And I found this guru and this yogi in India. And then I met this coach who wants to work with me and all these other things, and focus on these actions as opposed to just the simple experience of just any one of those simple experiences. I remember I was with one of your business partners, John, and he said, Nick, you're going on this crazy adventure. You get all these different experiences. And any one of those experiences could go really deep and rich and powerful and magically transform your life. And yet I'm feeling like you're discussing the surface and you're connecting on the surface on all these various things. If any one of those single experiences that can really magically change everything. And the way I've really got in touch with what I really love and care about has been discovered from that standpoint on how much I care about my relationship to myself and each of those people who I love the most in my life, and all the little things I could appreciate about them, and also pretty much through the oneness of all humanity, pinpointing those things I love about myself and each and every person, and pulling out those experiences, what they are, instantaneously, and then connecting with that. And the way you do that, it's like a journey into your mind and multiple dimensions and worlds and what have you, because you just pull out all these little emotions and details, and then you transform your students so they could do that in their lives. And I've seen so many of my classmates from your classes go back home to their families, and I've done the same thing, and reconnected with even people who I've grown up with, like my parents, and had conversations where they just instantly say, I don't know what this is. There's something about the way you're communicating that's just different, and eventually they get used to this new you. I've had other family members tell me, I feel like I'm talking to like some famous like psychiatrist or psychologist, and there's like this, or like an executive coach or team of really smart people, and I'm not sure if, I know you're really educated. I'm not sure if these are words that you got from other people or where you're getting some, or this is you. And I respond, all I really did was say what you said back to me and how I felt about it, and then just kind of like, led the conversation where you wanted to lead it. And now I'm just sharing with you the world of me being here with you, listening to you through my eyes. That's all I'm doing. And this is still the same me, but it's a new me. And I could go back to acting like the old me. And they're like, no. It's like, if that is really you, stay with that. I want to be that. It's just that, I don't know, there's something different. There's like an energy. And the richness of our conversation, it's like, I don't know, it just feels different, like a shift. For me, I've noticed that other people will say, hey, there's something about what you're doing where I felt like I wanted to react like this is a confrontation. I'm talking to you and I can't make it into a confrontation. And it's interesting how you do that. I remember we spent in our company, Real Social Dynamics, we have this retreat called Miami Winter Summit, where we have our people from all over the world flying from our company, and we will sometimes bring for our staff like a special guest coach. And so we brought in people from this company called Crucial Conversations. It's those situations where you have really high, difficult conversations, high risks, high emotions, high potential rewards, and differing opinions. And I remember in that conversation, they could come through the point where you're talking about the difference between stories and interpretations, and the difference between what happened and what meaning you give to what happened. And I heard that. At the same time, the practicality of that is actually embodied in the application of this tool that you've created, this whole system of circling, and I like that.
Right.
So it's not just
Yeah.
theory. It's very, very applicable. Now there's an application I learned that, but
Yeah.
what I'm hearing, what you've created, it's kind of like being a poet and knowing how to make things rhyme, like a rapper or a
Yeah.
poet, you know, and
Yeah.
just saying, okay, there's a structure. This is what
Yeah.
you need to do.
Yeah.
And you could lead that into any kind of rhyme and reason.
Yeah.
Yet
Yeah.
doing it in a way where there's something beautiful, magical, something that resonates
Yeah.
with the soul and the ear. There's like a vibrational energy to it, a resonance,
Yes.
poetic beauty to the
Yes.
words that come out of your mouth.
Yes.
And I feel that resonates not just with me and how I want to live my life, yet it resonates with other people where there's like something about sharing and allowing yourself to talk about feelings, even if they're just feelings that make every word you say just a little bit more magical. And it feels like you can see details and notice things that you haven't noticed. Like, you'll notice like I'm looking at this fake tree, I'm noticing the ruffles of the tree and how it's moving in the wind, the colors, not exactly the same green, but moves from that to that. And I'll notice now the same with emotions. If I'm talking to someone I really want to connect with, whether our students at Real Social Dynamics who want to connect with, say, like a beautiful woman that they want to date, or me wanting to make a business relationship with somebody else, it's like the same skills apply. You're developing a way of authentically relating, and it feels great. It feels like I have tools. I feel more creative. I feel inspired. And when you're doing that and projecting it onto people, it's so interesting. It's kind of like how I saw on your website. You have someone being circled on web, just like as an example of what it could be like, and it kind of gives like an example of a one-on-one experience. And the intensity of it was really cool. Yet when I see it in groups as well, it's like there's different mirrors. It's like they're all the same mirror, but this mirror has like a slight tint to it.
Yeah.
And that slight tint allowed me to see something different about myself. And I feel like when you live your life like that, you're able to be that slightly tint in the window for other people's projections of themselves and allow them to see who they really are. We were talking earlier about Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations of God. I remember going to his workshop, and he said, when I created this workshop, usually I have all these students from all over the world here. Do you think I created this for you? I didn't. I created this for me to learn more about who I am. And when you do circling, you're recreating that experience for every single participant there. And the beauty of that seems like it really hits the core of who we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And as you keep touching into it, there's something really mysterious about who we are. Like, it's funny, we can sit here in front of each other and just share what's happening right now. And you can tell me everything that you know, like, and there's not even anything that you could say about you that can sum you up or put a period. There's like it seems like there's something inexhaustible, right? And each person is more than they could even ever know. Now I would say the tragedy of that is that oftentimes, for a lot of different reasons, we end up only kind of holding to a very, very strict notion of who we are and what we think is possible, right? And a lot of times it has to do with how relationships went. If people weren't there, or if you experienced a lot of betrayal or a lot of loss, or the way that we relate to the world, we're always in a relationship. So those broken relationships in the past that go unresolved oftentimes leads to we have fixed ideas and notions and beliefs about ourselves, about other people, and about the world. They usually operate in the background, right? And so therefore our life ends up becoming a repeat of a movie, right? Where we'll desperately be trying hard to solve this problem, right? Of like, I'm finally going to get the respect from the authorities, or I'm finally going to get her to accept me, or I'm finally going to not have this conflict. But there's a way in which our blind spot is that we don't notice that we kind of index the world, right? In such a way in terms of that problem so we can solve it, but that recreates the problem. And it's interesting, it's not like people are consciously doing that. You wouldn't consciously do that, right? So the insightful part about relating is that, you know, you're in so many ways like I mean, we like to think that we're transparent to ourselves. We all like to think that. But the truth of it is, it's like what makes us human is that most of where I come from is so close to me I can't see it, right? However, when you were talking about the group, right, when you get a bunch of people around you, and what we do in circling is we do that in a practice, and that's a big thing about circling is, and that's what makes it distinct. Is circling is a relational practice, just like meditation is a practice for awareness, right? Yoga is a practice for body mind, right? There's there's practices for everything, but when we started circling and it evolved into what it is, a relational practice, we realized like there's hardly anything out there that takes the most fundamental things for a human being and actually has us practice it well, right? And that's that's where it's difficult to describe, because it isn't just a skill set. There are skills, and the skills allow you to have give you some guidance, so that you can have an experience that those skills point to, and you can develop a capacity that you end up learning. It's really about a way of being. It's not about having. It's not about doing. Really, you do things differently, but there's a certain point where as you continue to circle and you continue to practice opening your heart and opening your listening and sharing yourself and being willing to like say when you're upset without being defensive, and lean into conflict without going to war, right? Like feeling into the thing that when you said that thing that hurt me, where I would want to like just pull away or like fight you. Instead, I feel my anger or I feel my fear, and then I move towards you and I share that with you. See, as you start to have those experiences, and at first it's wonky. Like you're like, what do I say? Like, what was I supposed to say again? It's like anything. It's like you're learning these skills. And in circling, you could say things to say, like the line exercises that you were talking about. Like, yeah, being with you right now, I'm noticing. Right? And then you fill in the blank, and then you find out. And all that stuff allows you to start to bring your attention into the place of presence, the place of connection, right? And then once you start to kind of have these experiences, they glow, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to go back there, but you have an experience that you never had before that you're like, oh, that was it. And so you go back and do another experience, and then you remember that experience, and then you start to like it, and you practice it, and then you have it again, and you see a new angle, and then you see it, and you're opened by it, and then you start to understand how that happened, and then you can start to do it intentionally, and then you can start to do it to the point where it's just like breathing. It's just your orientation in life, and that's what's really cool. I think that's what I'm excited about with circling is it's not like a technique, right? It's not like a 1, 2, 3, 4, the 3 quickest ways to, get rich or something like that. There's a deep respect for, no, it's like human beings develop, right? Human beings are deep. Circling is just a way of taking, say, whatever it is, like the fundamental things that always happen when any two people have enriching, epic, moving, deep conversations. And you can say, like, in a certain sense, we've figured out what's the commonality of all profound conversations. What are the underlying presuppositions? What are the practices? Where does it come from? And then circling, you could say, is like creates a shape around that. And then when we circle, we go into that shape, and we just like you go into downward dog in a yoga move, or you stay with your breath in meditation. Even when you want to go out, you just bring yourself back. Circling, you could say, are these deep yoga stretches in what makes profound, deep, enriching connections with other people possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful that you created the Circling Institute. And if anybody wants to get more information about the Circling Institute, visit the Circling Institute website, circlinginstitute.com. Guy offers some of the most amazing workshops on the planet in the Bay Area, and has a team of facilitators that are in training, and also practitioners that are in training that really want to get deeper into this. I love how also you have events all over the Northern California area, and if you're interested in checking those out, they happen all the time. You can check them out on the Circling Institute Facebook page. And I am so grateful for the opportunity to have this interview with you and share my experience, and I look forward to interviewing you as well.
Right on.
All right, cheers.
Oh, thank you.